Aviravirmaedhi Vedasya Anisthaha Shrutam me ma prahasihi Anena dhikena horatran samdadhami Ritam vadishyami Satyam vadishyami Tanmanavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we read three first verses. Chitram devanam udagadanikam chakshurmitrasya varunasya agneh apra dyava prithivi antariksham surya atma jagatastasthusascha suryo devim ushasam rochamanam Maryona Yosham Abhiti Paschat Yatra Naro Devayanto Yogani Vitanvate Pratibhadraya Bhadram. Hi Julia. Bhadra Ashva Haritah Suryasya Chitra Etagva Anamadhyasah Namasyantah Divah Aprishtham Asthu Paridyava Prithvi Yanti Sadhya Tatsuryasya Devatvam Tanmahitvam Madhyakartoh Vitatam Samjabhara Yaded Ayukta Haritah Sadhasthat Adratri Vasah Tanute Simasmai. So here we stopped at this verse number 4. So you remember the first three verses, they're very beautiful. So the power, anikam, fully conscious, charged with consciousness, chitram of the gods, has risen. Chakshuh mitrasya varunasya agneh. The eye of Mitra and Varuna, of consciousness and being, of Agni, filling all the space in between and the heaven and earth, the self of everything which moves and moves not. Surya Devimushasam Rojamanam. Surya follows after the dawn as the young boy or man follows after the maiden. There where all the heroic souls of man seeking the divine manifestation spread the yugas, the portions of time, as blissful for the blissful. Bhadrashva Haritah Suryasya Chitraetagva Namadhyasah Namasyantah Divaha Prishtamastuh Paridyava Prithivi Yanti Satyah. And his ashvas, blissful swiftnesses, movements of his forces of the sun, bright and conscious Chitra, and with brilliant powers, Etagva, Chitra Etagva, Anamadhyasa, should be welcomed one by one. There's some grades of his power, one after the other, as hues of his light. Namasyantah deva aprishtamasthu. For these bearing our prayers, ascended to the top of heaven. to the back of heaven, and in a moment they spread all over heaven and earth. Tat Surya se adivatvam tan mahitvam. And here we stopped. And that is indeed his divinity, Devatvam. And that is his greatness, Mahitvam. The work have done, Matyakartoh, which was widely spread out, Vitatam, Samjabhara, he has taken now fully. He carries fully through. When he has yoked his horses to work from their unyoked common places, Yad id ayukta haritach sadhasthat ad ratri vasastanote masmai. Then the night spreads out her garments onto him. This is profound. This is as Surya moves out of his supramental domain, of his transcendental body, as if the beams of light or the rays of light, so to say, depart from the body of the sun. When they depart, those photons, which are finally breaking through all that magma and all those, plasma, and in which they rotate for millions of years, it seems. No, the science tells us that those photons, which are generated in the core, stay in the sun and heated up for millions of years. They cannot break through the gravitation pull. And then when they lose their power, they become less harmful, then they are released into the space. So this is when these horses are swiftnesses, so to say, when they are yoked to work from their common places where they are unyoked, so to say, where they stay freely. Now they will be yoked to work. Then the night spreads out her garments onto him. Then they move into that dark space, into the night, where there is no body of the sun anymore. By the way, those first realms which are described symbolically in this way, they are called overmental realms, or the Swar world, the world of the rays of the sun. Not of the sun as a body, but of his rays, where they are meeting for the first time the darkness. So the darkness and the light, they penetrate. And that's how the body of the sun becomes the rays of light, moving into the manifestation. And this is indeed his greatness and his divinity. The work which was spread and half finished, he indeed takes it to all to accomplish. So when he yokes his forces to do the work here, the movements of his supramental being in its multiple, or in its multitude, then the night spreads her enveloping garments to clothe and to house him in, which is the vision of manifestation of the divine here in the lower hemisphere. This verse differs from the similar verse in the hymn which we already read, 238 to Savitar, where the night is revealing all that Savitar has spread. But there, on that level of Svar, it's exactly the level of the ray of the sun. The night is taking the rays and revealing everything. So in that sense, there is no body of Surya. This is Savitar's work. Similarly, the word vitatam is used, finishing his half-done work anew. Same word, spread out, was used in this hymn 238. Here it is said that this half-finished work the sun bears fully, samjabhara, takes fully, and carries through. Although Griffith cannot somehow believe it. Yeah, Griffith could not believe, and he translates it differently because he compares it with that hymn to Savitar. It may also explain another statement from the hymn to the dawn, where she is asked to hurry with her evolutionary work. For when Surya comes, and the work is still unfinished, it is said in the hymn, he may burn all like thieves and robbers. Do not delay your sacrificial work, Machiram Tanutha Apoch, says the Rishi to the dawn. Do not let the sun burn you with his flame, as if you are a thief and an enemy. Na itva stenam yatharipum tapati suro archisha. This is very also interesting view. So the sun is a symbol of the supramental manifestation. So if he comes before the dawn, has finished her evolutionary preparatory work, so to say, bringing down the light of the sun and establishing it in the darkness, gradually transforming it into the substance of light, then the supramental light, symbolized by the sun, would simply burn it down, destroying this creation, which is unprepared to receive the full force of that light. It is interesting to note that the word thief, stena, is used in this context. Stena is the one who lives for himself, having come into this creation to do the sacrificial work, as we all came here to do this work. That is for the divine growth in the manifestation. He changes his mind, as it were, and starts to live for himself alone, and his own enjoyment, and his own knowledge, and his own power. Stena, according to the Vedic psychology, is the one who does not sacrifice, who takes the divine light and support for granted, with no gratitude and no giving back. The panis, the traffickers and traders, are also called thieves and robbers. They steal the divine light and treasures, store them in the cave of subconscious, but do not use them, those treasures, for the divine purpose, which is the welfare of all. So when the time of the sun, the supramental manifestation, comes, and the sun, the divine eye, sees that the bearers of light are not ready to receive and to use the immortal power, it will treat them as thieves and robbers. Here these are the quotations. Vyucha dohitoro divo machiram tanutha apah. Shine wide, O daughter of heaven, do not delay your work. Let not sun with his flame burn you down, as if it was a thief or enemy, or maiden of a perfect birth, or mistress of power, of happy truth. I'm just quoting here because it's kind of interesting to see this mind of the rishi, who envisions the end. The end would be the full manifestation of the divine. And those who are not ready will have problems with the light coming. It will burn them down as if robbers and thieves. As darkness will be burned down. We know it from many different other religions and sects and philosophies, the same vision. For example, there was Agni Yoga, where Röhrig, maybe you heard of him, Röhrig is a great artist and painter. He was in India for many years. He was traveling in Himalayas in search of Shambhala, and he, with his wife, they created, or they say they received, this yoga from the gurus in the subtle world, which they call Agni Yoga. And in that Agni Yoga, the major postulate is that we have to increase the intensity of fire within us. Because when the time is here for the supramental manifestation, or that sun will be burning us down. So if we are not ready to receive the sun's blast, so to say, with energy equal to it, which is growing from within, then we will not survive. That is the philosophy of that, of this Vedic vision, actually.
I'm glad. I have a question.
Mm.
With that, the idea of being burned down, in this context, does that imply samsara?
Yeah, everything which is not divine, which didn't have time to transform into the divine prototype. So everything what we are today, we would be burned to ashes if some of that higher force would come. Yeah, because nothing here can bear that power, intensity, and knowledge. Yeah? It's a great power. The mother says that Mahakali is never invoked, because if she would come to earthly atmosphere, she would crush it down, because everything here resists the divine manifestation. So.
But I just mean it in a way of that, isn't that what it is to not as the true nature of self, in that way of light, because that is also possible, just very rare.
Well, this is the vision, which is telling us something, where we are moving, where we are heading at, what is our aim. Our aim is a total divine manifestation. Nobody arrived at that point yet, neither in the past nor in the future yet. So it's our movement towards that fullness of the divine manifestation.
Well, I guess that was where I was thinking of the difference between a creation and a manifestation, in the sense that it is each organism's, each human being's manifestation that is being discussed, or do you take this more as an idea of or a viewpoint or a context of creation? Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah. I think in terms of manifestation always as a creation. Creation, of course, it is new for him, because he didn't have that particular form in which he wanted to be many. He never was many in full sense of the supreme sense. Yeah. Many doesn't mean that he plays with toys which are half real and then he drops them. That is not many. Many means for him, so to say, for the divine who is from the beginning having this intention, means that he wanted to be many as he is, supremes. And in that sense, every individual manifestation of him has to have that quality of the supreme, which is very difficult to achieve, because You need to keep for a long time the night working, separating, a ray of light from another ray of light, individualizing it, and then developing it to its fullest supreme potential. That is the evolutionary process, which takes time, a long time, and a lot of energy and work and failures. And nature is looking for all kinds of ways to make it. Well, I'm speaking this kind of mysterious language as if nature is doing something else. But I'm kind of adopting this language from Sri Aurobindo, where he speaks about nature as a conscious being who is working with the divine and trying to make it for the divine. By the way, this
in fact, Vlad, that's exactly what my thought was, is that it's really all nature.
right.
That, that there's no, I guess in that way, the way I was using nature in that way was that the divine is nature and nature is the divine.
Right. Right.
Well, nature is part of the divine.
Right. Nature is an executive force, executrix of the divine.
Active.
She is his will and body and everything, yes. It will be known and discovered later when she reveals her true divine nature and her prakriti nature. She will reveal one day. And then we will see that it is his being, his consciousness, and his bliss, what she is. Yeah? Because Prakriti is Satchitananda. So there would be no contradiction, yes. But as for now, there is this interference of night. There is consideration of either moving ahead or staying and living for oneself. All these notions are important for our consciousness. It seems that without it, we will not be able to move ahead. If we are not doing it consciously, it seems that it takes endless time or something. Nature evolved and developed us for the reason that we will take up this work and will do it consciously. Now it needs conscious interference. It cannot go on in that animal way as animal, evolution, because it will take endless time, infinite time. But it needs conscious interference. So we are the agents of that evolution of nature.
So may I ask a question then in that regard? When in both the hymns to Savitar and the hymns to Surya, it said that the night is a requirement. In Savitar's case, I'm not sure I can form this question completely, but in Savitar's case, he continues his influence even in the night, and Surya has to stop and allow that reconfiguring in the darkness. Is that correct?
In Surya's case, he takes this work and does it to the end. He carries it through Samjabhara, yes?
Surya does.
Yes, if Surya comes. Surya is the self of all what moves and moves not. Savitar is the consciousness force which is dealing with it is the Surya's power, as it were, yeah? So to say.
But so I would think Savitar, Surya, the consciousness power is there whether there's consciousness or not. It's because all of creation is consciousness at its foundation. And the self is a feature of light. It has to be.
No, no, the self is the foundation, it's the being, without which there is no consciousness or force. Consciousness and force are productive of the self. Self is the beginning and the end, the alpha and omega. It is not the consciousness and force. There, from what? Conscious of what if there is no being? And power of what if there is no being? Power is the being, and consciousness is conscious of the being, which is the attribute of being, basically. So Savitar is the action of the self, of Surya. Surya is the body. Surya is not a product of Savitar. No. At least I don't see it this way. I always saw being to be first, Sat Chit Ananda, yes, not Chit Sat Ananda.
So the being is the existence, the pure existence.
Correct.
Of unlimited, and Savitar is that
Action.
value which makes that being become.
Yes. Savitar is that which makes that being become. Exactly. Very good definition. And that is why he is a projection of that. He creates that outflowing of the divine being into this night, non-being, and on the meeting point where they cross, the whole manifestation takes place. Right. But the idea of the thief is also very prominent and very Vedic, yeah, with panis and so on. And you can see these thieves everywhere. Sri Aurobindo beautifully explains this also in his quotation in the essays on the Gita about the thief. But the individual being begins with ignorance and persists long in ignorance. Acutely conscious of himself, he sees the ego as the cause and the whole meaning of his life, and not the divine. That's how we usually see ourselves, no? He sees himself as a doer of works and does not see that all the workings of existence, including his own internal and external activities, are the workings of one universal nature and nothing else. He sees himself as the enjoyer of works and imagines that for him all exists, and him nature ought to satisfy and obey his personal will. He does not see that she is not at all concerned with satisfying him or at all careful of his will. He cannot understand this ego, but obeys a higher universal will and seeks to satisfy a Godhead who transcends her and her works and creations. His finite being, his will and his satisfactions are hers and not his. And she offers them at every moment as a sacrifice to the divine, of whose purpose in her she makes all this the covered instrumentations. Because of this ignorance, whose seal is egoism, the creature ignores the law of sacrifice and seeks to take all he can for himself and gives only what nature by her internal and external compulsion forces him to give. He can really take nothing except what she allows him to receive as his portion, what the divine powers within her yield to his desire. The egoistic soul in a world of sacrifice is as if a thief or robber who takes what these powers bring to him and has no mind to give it in return. He misses the true meaning of life, and since he does not use life and works for the enlargement and elevation of his being through sacrifice, he lives in vain.
Beautiful. Wow, that's a powerful piece.
Right. If we look carefully at nature, we will see that the law of sacrifice is the only law she obeys. She follows this law everywhere, in every field. Plants, look how they bloom, and flowers and fruits. They give in abundance. From one small seed, you receive, thousands and thousands of sweetest mangoes, which create a whole forest of mangoes with millions of sweetest mangoes, and they're all given to you. Take, yeah, in abundance. Nature works with this sacrificial abundance.
So is Apani then, the thief or robber, is actually the ego or any individuality that thinks that they themselves are doing the work of nature for themselves and not realize, is that what Apani actually is?
Yeah, panis are, Sri Aurobindo says, they are the karmendriyas, they are the indriyas of action. Our hands, legs, procreatory, excrematory organs, and speech. Yeah, it is all these karmendriyas which evolved from the depth of inconscient, and they do not know how to sacrifice. And they are our stumbling block, because whenever we become active, we become less perceptive, or we become perceptive of our inner reality, innermost reality, when we become less active. So cannot be both. We cannot be active and perceptive simultaneously, it seems, because of this nature of panis, yeah? These robbers, traffickers. They steal the inner light and hide it in the subconscious cave. And this is a profound truth of our existence. Yeah, that's why all these methods of yoga were developed, where you sit down and close your eyes and stop breathing, even in order to penetrate deeper into the inner perception. Because even breathing will move you away from that inner perception. It's a strange thing, yeah, about ourselves.
But it's very sticky. It is, the consciousness is sticky because all of life wants to be conscious. So even though it takes a very long time and you have to sit down and close your mouth and close your mouth particularly, but close your eyes, it sticks eventually. And if you just continue along and alternate that silence and your action and the silence and the action, eventually you become conscious.
Correct, absolutely. What you're saying, it's what Sri Aurobindo also recommends, exactly the same. When Pavitra asks him, "What shall I do?" when I'm going into meditation, I have this contact and perception of the presence, but when I'm coming out of it and do something, especially when I'm engaged in some mathematical formula to solve or something equation, then I'm losing that contact of inner perception very easily. And Sri Aurobindo suggests to him, he says, you go slow with this. From meditation, you come out slowly, not immediately into action. Keep the contact and try to do the action, mechanical action first, such as washing dishes or something, peeling potato, something which does not require much of your inner resources, so you could keep up with the inner perception. And that's how you train yourself step by step to be conscious in action. And it is not an easy task. That is basically what karma yoga is about, how to bring consciousness into action, to these karmendriyas, panis of the Veda. Basically, it's all about that. All our activities and our action is about this, how to bring that light into the action, into the place where there is no light, and make it, to elevate it and change its nature. Okay.
So is that Savitar's job then?
I think, everyone's job. It is our job. We came here for the same. We are heroic souls of man, and the sun is moving in that direction, and the dawn comes to support us. And Savitar works with us all the time. He brought us in, and he uplifts us up. And Agni is always there, which is burning within us to invoke and bring all the devatas into this activity for us to grow and to change. Yes, the whole world is doing this with all the forces. Only we are not conscious of it. We think about it differently. But if we change our perspective, we would see another world. The same world, but with different meaning. And it explains quite a lot why things as they are. Yeah, call from heaven. Let us take next verse. Tan mitrasya varunasya bhichakshe suryo rupam kranute dioru upasthe. Anantamanyad rushad asya pajah Krishnam anyad haridach sambharanti. Again, there are two forms. To see that of Mitra and Varuna, the sun makes out of himself a form in the lap of heaven. So there is some form of the sun is projected into the heaven. And that is most probably the sun we are talking about, the mental sun, the vital and the physical finally. Infinite is his power shining on the one hand and dark on the other, which his power horses bear fully. I have to rephrase it a bit better. So again, the word sambharanti is used, bearing absolutely. So his horses now, swiftnesses, who actually rush into the darkness, bringing his power, his rays into it, bear absolutely the darkness, so to say. But now it is his horses' powers that bear fully his infinite force, anantamasya pajah, fully his pajas. Pajas is his guts, if you will, his very substance, his depth, which is shining and dark, anyad rushat, Krishnam anyad. So there are two parts which are involved here. Anantam rushat asya pajah is infinite substance burning with light. In Krishna Manyat, and there is another part of him which is dark, which his horses totally carry out, work out. And this is mysterious ways of talking about these things. Sometimes in the later literature in Brahmanas, they will be comparing Mitra and Varuna to light and darkness. And but I'm not sure that this is correct. Though I also followed that interpretation for many years and still think it has something to do with it. But eventually, even here, that is of Mitra and of Varuna to see. And then again, the light and darkness. One part is light and the other is darkness. There will be passages where it will be said that Agni is Mitra when he is, or he is Varuna when he is being born, and he is Mitra when he is flaming out. So in the process of birth, he is Varuna. In the process of flaming out, he is Mitra. So there will be certain meaning in it, yeah? In the darkness and light. What is this darkness and light? Darkness is light shrinking to the center, intensifying through the center, and light is flaming and releasing into self-giving. So there are two movements as if, yeah. Adhyattic. Yeah.
It's interesting that I was been thinking about this for quite some time during the lecture, that the light penetrates to dark. But what you just said almost answered my question, was that my thought was that darkness cannot penetrate light, but light just shrinks back into a more concentrated form and then comes out, expresses itself further again. Is that how I that's how I understood that? Because we're talking dark and light, but darkness never enters the light. Light just shrinks away, or concentrates into what you had just said. Actually,
yeah, the darkness is actually light, which separated itself from the consciousness of the Supreme. Yeah, it's the same awareness which lost its contact with the source. Yeah? So darkness is another type of light which is shrinking, which is kind of bent onto itself, as it were. Yeah? It is no more, it's like a black hole which is full of light within, but we don't see it. Yeah? It creates that, it does not allow the light to come out. It holds it in.
Oh. It's a good perspective.
I always think about darkness being unmanifest light, that it's light that is just contracted into silence. And
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, the same thing you are saying, in my view at least. I don't see any, but it's a beautiful, yeah, it's not unmanifested light which is fallen. It was light and it turned to be darkness. And that is also an important knowledge which we gather from these texts, that Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri, that we are not coming from darkness, we are coming from light. From the light we come and into the light we go. This is important message, that we are light. We are coming from light and into light we go. But in between, there is this something, this event of darkness, as if the darkness was included into light and not light included into the darkness. As if night is within the sun and not the sun is within the night.
Is there also not a sort of a connection to the idea of darkness being used as a metaphor for manifestation that lacks the kind of consciousness or awareness that light has?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, again, there's rephrasing the same idea, right? Beautiful. At least The light is allowing the night is allowing the light to be spelled out in time and space. The night is the creator of that movement of time and space. Yeah? Without night, there would be no time and space. And by the way, it is confirmed in the Rig Veda, the last hymn of the Rig Veda, that the time was born from the waters of the inconscient. When the waters of the inconscient came into being, from there the time was born. Because without that power of darkness, the process of manifesting individual events of the infinite light would not be possible. Okay, so that's why here in this mysterious way they mention both the infinite power of his flaming substance, Rushad Pajach, Anantam Rushad, flaming Pajach, substance, and another one, Anyat Krishnam, the dark one, which his horses carry out totally, the rays of light. Hold on to. Beautiful, really.
But I thought that the horses brought in the light into the darkness and not held on to the, not so much that they held on to the darkness. The horses bring the light.
Correct. They are yoking the light to the darkness. And the light is needed in the darkness. That is the purpose of the whole manifestation, that the light will come into the darkness and reveal the value of the night in terms of light. Yeah? There will be a revelation from within the night. There will be that light beaming again. Yeah? So, right. So, and the last verse, I think it is the last one, yeah, of this hymn. Adyadeva udita Suryasya nir amhasach piprita nir avadyat tanno mitro varunamamahantam aditich sindhu prithivi utadyao. This is the signature of Kutsan Girasa, aditich sindhu, this last line. Today, O gods, in the time of rising of the sun, Udita Suryasya, save us from narrowness of the dark abyss, Niramhasaf Piprita, and from that which should not be spoken or expressed in us, Niravadyat. Tanno mitro Varuna Mamahanta, may Mitra Varuna, Aditi, ocean, earth, and heaven grant us that. Mamahantam, may they increase or grant within us this. It is interesting that the gods should protect and grant us that in the time of the rising of the sun, but not the sun itself should grant or protect us. There is something about it. It seems not to have such a function. Sun itself is not a protector. He is a destroyer of evil and a destroyer of all the resistance and darkness. But the gods have to, all these other transcendental powers, the guardians, Mitra, Varuna, Aryaman, Bhaga, all of them have to create within us this capacity to receive that absolute consciousness and power of the divine. So this is the hymn. Quite a hymn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Could you go back?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's interesting that in Jyotish, the sun is considered a malefic, because even though it's the, you know, it's the very being of life, it's the very source of everything in our creation, really, but it's considered to be a malefic, and this kind of underscores that it can't protect us, actually, because of it. It does have that burning quality.
Very interesting. And you know what also makes me think after watching that program on the Sun scientific program, that the core, the nuclear core, which generates those gamma radiation or gamma, yeah, it is so harmful. It is so destructive for life, any form of life, that the whole plasma around in the sun, body of the sun, is holding those gamma radiations for years and years, million years. They are bouncing back and forth, losing energy into the shininess of the sun, where the lower, so to say, energetic particles can be released. And what it makes me think in this hymn, where it is said that he created his projection in heaven, another body, that means there is a gap between the center, which is so malefic and destructive, and that bodies which he created in heaven, so to say, the very body and the physical body, which protect that harmfulness of the sun and turn them into creative power of life. And that is the work of the night. Again, the night helps. She casts the cloth over him, the cover of the night, and that kind of creates the possibility of life in time and space. There's another way of thinking about it, which is kind of new to me, and this for the first time I think in those terms. But it could be also a good explanation in the physical world why sun is like that, created in that way.
Beautiful. I would just say exactly, Vlad. I was thinking the same way along the lines of the night building structure. I was going to say it is as if without the night, in quotes, there would be no nature, or nature is the night, or this idea of the structure. There is no, as you spoke before on, there is no time for us, because the whole perspective we're talking about is one from the viewpoint of being a human being, a human consciousness. There is no other that we can relate with. That is what we know. And in that way, when I was looking at this, I was thinking, and I have a question about this, but save us from the narrowness of the dark abyss, is a thought of the idea of let us be light, let us not fall into darkness, and yet the darkness is that from which we arise, that which holds the very source of life, and that without, as you said before, without the body, where is the consciousness, or what is there to be discussed? Or without an individual, there is no manifestation, and it becomes a moot point to discuss a creation. But my question is here where it says, and from that which should not be spoken, expressed in us. Could you explain that a little?
Near Avadiyat, yes. From that which should be not spoken or expressed. Vad, from root vad, to speak. sound or express, as a yeah, this is the same as amhas. Amhas is that narrowness of consciousness, which is putting us into the place where no consciousness can be revealed, so to say. It is turned onto itself and disappears, becomes total darkness. And avadya is also something which is of the same kind, which cannot be, cannot sound, cannot express itself. So from that, I translated avadya as the participle futurum necessitatis futurum passive voice. So that means should not be expressed, but one can say from that which cannot express anything. Save us from that which can't express anything. So there is a state of consciousness in which the narrowness is so great that from there nothing can express itself. The gravitation is so huge, that it does not allow any expression to come out. Heaviness of darkness. Well, we have to discover what darkness is, because we think about darkness in terms of something opposite to light, but it is that light which is gravitating towards its other center, so to say, away from its self-awareness or its, supreme awareness of it as it is. So it finds another nature, as it were, and because it gravitates towards this selfishness or selfish center from which nothing can be revealed or expressed. I'm using this imagery of the black hole because it is very useful. It can give us some idea what it could mean, the darkness. So the darkness is that black hole everywhere. Not in one sense.
What does the word save us from?
Piprita. Nir is out. Take us out. Literally, yeah, it's from root pri parayati, is the 10th class, or the 3rd class. Yeah, both is used. So to say, carry us away or to another shore, something. Take us out of it, of the amhas and unexpressed state of existence.
I don't know why I'm having this, but you know that there's that verse somewhere from Rig Veda that says yato vacho nivartante, that which from where speech returns.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if this can't be, nir means also don't let us leave from that place from where speech returns.
Oh, there is no speech returning here. This amhas, narrowness, and unexpressed state. So if it would be that, yeah, yato vajani vartante aprapya manasa saha. So this is another view, and it is not Vedic, it's already Upanishadic, but it's still, it is the state of consciousness to which neither our speech nor mind can come, and so it is transcendental, about it. Here we are dealing with something else. It's a Vedic vision where Rishi deals with the darkness. You see, in the Upanishads, nobody deals with the darkness anymore. Did you notice it? We don't have even concept of night. We never speak about it. Nobody thinks about it. It is only in the Veda that we have this concept so prominent and so functional, constantly involved, constantly being part of this vision, that in the Upanishads and post-Vedic literature, you will have only transcendental to which we have to come. We already change our perspective. We are looking from the individual point of view. We don't see it from the, the divine point of view, as the Vedas look at our manifestation.
Okay, I see.
Very good. All right, so we will stop here for today, and I will close with mantra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santo Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. All right. Okay. See you, friends, next time then.
What a day. Thank you, Vladimir.
Thank
Thank you, Vlad.
See you. Bye.